You know what's better than a top 5 list of the most terrifying Lovecraftian stories ever written? Leaving out some of the best ones so we can make a second part for all of you cosmic horror fanatics. Nah, I'm just kidding, because as I said, the first part of this video definitely had a personal bias, but fear not, because I've scoured the comment section cosmos and compiled all of your eldritch ramblings into one condensed list. So hold on to your hats, because we're heading back into the abyss. Hello horror fans, and once again welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, top 5 scary videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch as we creak open the parlour door and gasp in horror at what lies ahead, and curiously take a look at the top 5 scariest Lovecraftian stories, part 2. Roll the clip. For the curious amongst you, that film was from 1989's Leviathan, which, let's not beat around the bush, is so bad that it's good, but if you've got an hour or so to kill, it's worth a watch. Let's be honest, nothing says Lovecraftian appropriate clip like a snarling mouth on a hand, right? Yeah. Right. Kicking off at number 5, The Call of Cthulhu. And a lot of you guys were curious as to why this one didn't make the first part of this list, but for me, The Call of Cthulhu is perhaps the best entry to the Lovecraftian universe for any budding horror scholar. Yeah, I understand that if you're a serious top 5 scary fan, you'll know that we covered this story in our Cthulhu Monster Files video, so I guess you can call this one a double whammy. Written in the summer of 1926, The Call of Cthulhu is perhaps one of the most complex and ambitious narratives throughout his entire body of work. Lovecraftian scholar Peter Cannon remarked that it was one of Lovecraft's bleakest fictional expressions of man's insignificant place in the universe. Now, that's what I call an accolade. The intrigue from Call of Cthulhu comes from its almost panoramic narrative, encompassing a fictional documentary of sorts that weaves 3 separate narratives together that slowly make up the bleak realization of Cthulhu's existence. Now, I'm trying my hardest not to ruin anything, as a lot of the magic behind the Call of Cthulhu comes from personal discovery, but take that as a reason to read this one, because it's some of Lovecraft's finest work, and it will have you feeling like a cosmic horror detective in no time. Next up at number 4, the music of Eric Zahn, which I know that for many of you, the music of Eric Zahn is considered one of the most beautiful demonstrations of H.P. Lovecraft's proficiency for prose, and I would have to wholeheartedly agree. And I'll do you one better and leave a link below if you haven't yet read it. Written in December 1921, this short story is pretty much the cosmic horror version of Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris, which is also one of my favourite movies of all time, so go figure. Lovecraft himself considered the music of Eric Zahn one of his greatest accomplishments, and what plays out is an atmospheric, slow-burning crawl into the abyss. The story itself is narrated by an unnamed student of metaphysics who, struggling financially, rents a place in a mysterious neighbourhood known as Rue d'Orsay, in which is suggested to be Paris, although it's never fully revealed. There, he meets a mute German viol player named Eric Zahn, who plays weird, indescribable cosmic harmonies in his attic apartment that may or may not be the abyssal music of the Endless Void. As per usual, I don't want to ruin anything because there are some incredible twists and turns in what is essentially a 3,000 word story, but the thing that makes the music of Eric Zahn so successfully haunting is what it suggests in its ambiguity. Give it a read. It's awesome. Swinging in next at number 3, The Colour Out of Space, which for me has one of the most awesome horror endings in all of Lovecraft's work. Don't worry, I won't spoil it, and we'll leave you a link so you can read it out for yourself. In The Colour Out of Space, once again, we head back to Arkham, Massachusetts, Lovecraft's fictional New England county, where the majority of his best work was set. Again, as is usual with Lovecraftian horror, an unnamed narrator, a land surveyor from Boston, tells the tale from a first-person perspective of a mysterious wild land in the rural Arkham landscape, referred to by the locals as the Blasted Heath. Of course, in typical Lovecraftian fashion, the explanation for this particular heath being so unfortunate is down to the nefarious machinations of the cosmos. Poor humanity, we can't ever catch a break. The thing that makes The Colour Out of Space so horrifyingly unique is the literal weight that Lovecraft gives the titular colour, an alien life form which is only explainable by the human mind in analogy. Reading this horror short story is an experience in itself, and it was Lovecraft's incredibly successful attempt at trying to create a completely unique alien life form. It's one of his finest demonstrations of science fiction and horror, and it's widely inspired the genre as a whole. Next up at number 2, The Shadow Out of Time. which in many ways is a story based on H.P. Lovecraft himself and his incessant, overwhelming feeling of not quite fitting into society throughout the majority of his life, as well as drawing stark parallels to Lovecraft's own father, Winfield Scott Lovecraft, who displayed eccentric behaviour during a 5-year period of madness. It makes sense then that The Shadow Out of Time tells the tale of the Yith, an extraterrestrial species with the ability to travel through space and time that can possess the bodies of unfortunate humans, inducing visions of strange cosmic vistas while simultaneously living their lives through the ages. Written in 1934, The Shadow Out of Time tells the tale of Nathaniel Wingate Peaslee, a professor of political economy at Arkham's Miskatonic University, and perhaps one of Lovecraft's most fully formed protagonists. The scope of this story is absolutely massive, and it traverses some of the highest concepts in cosmic horror. But it's in its small referential nuances that makes The Shadow Out of Time so damned good and creepy. It's genuinely scary and serves as almost a codex to Lovecraft's work, effortlessly tying together some of his most terrifying themes while managing to keep the horror to a personal level. If you can't tell, it's great and you should read it. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, The Whisperer in Darkness. While some of you may not agree with the order of our last 3 spots on this list, I'm taking a little bit of a liberty in putting this story at our top spot, because in my personal opinion, The Whisperer in Darkness is the best demonstration of how perfectly bleak and unstoppable the dread of science fiction horror can be. And it culminates in a brain in a jar. Because for me, there's nothing more terrifying than falsely finding humanity in something that is far from human. Published in 1931, The Whisperer in Darkness is a story told by Albert N. Wilmarth, perhaps one of Lovecraft's most iconic narrators, whose family name is regularly referred to in Lovecraftian fiction. Wilmarth is a professor of literature at Miskatonic University in Arkham, who begins a correspondence with his fellow folklorist Henry Wentworth Akeley about the mysterious goings-on in the isolated foothills of Vermont. Again, no spoilers, because going into this story with no idea is the best way to experience it. We'll leave a link down below. It also references Lovecraft's magnum innominandum, the great not to be named, the mysterious, all-powerful entity that lingers in the shadows of his cosmic horror fiction. And on second reading, there is much more to this story than what first meets the eye. Give it a read. Well, there we have it, horror fans. Make sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Before we depart though, let's read out some of your more creative comments from over the past few days. Frontal Lobe says, I thought Lucy shivved you in your last video. You recovered fast. Must be something supernatural about you. Well, Frontal Lobe, that's a sound observation, but did Lucy really shiv me? Or did she simply successfully shiv another version of me? Who knows? Ori BB says, it'd be interesting to hear about a top 10 Stephen King short stories or novels. Well, Ori BB, it's interesting that you should say that, because I may or may not have something on the cards already for you. Stay tuned for more. Unfortunately folks, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Just sticking around all the way until the end. If you're a fan of this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscribe bell, and we'll be seeing you in the next one. As always, I've been your horror host Jack Finch. You've been watching Top 5 Scary Videos, and until next time, you take it easy.